Isn't that the prettiest Ethernet cable that you've ever seen? Hi, I'm Willie with H5 Technology, and welcome to my channel. Thank you for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I really do. And tonight what we're going to be talking about is setting up an entire small business network using a full UniFi stack. So what we're going to be using is we're going to be using a UniFi switch 860 watt, a USG 3-port, a standard USG. We're going to be using the cloud key for the controller. We're going to use a UniFi access point, a UniFi camera, and a Cisco IP phone. And that is going to be our full stack. You're going to be able to take this network that we're building on a very small scale here, and you're going to be able to scale it out to very large networks. Now, I'm going to show you the diagram, and then I'll explain how everything's wired up. We'll get everything fired up, and we'll get started. So the first thing that we're going to have, and by the way, this is Simple Diagrams 4. This is the diagram software that I'm using right now instead of Visio. It was 40 bucks. It's got really cool graphics, I think, and so I'm trying it out for 40 bucks, you know. And so what we've got is we're going to have the internet out here, and this firewall router is our USG. And so internet will come in here, go out to the switch, and then the switch will have the access point, which will have a guest Wi-Fi, corporate Wi-Fi. It will have desktops and servers, which will be on the data network. The corporate Wi-Fi will also be on the data network. We'll have IP cameras on the video network and IP phones on the voice network. And we will have this guest network as well. And what we'll do is we'll set this up so that later on down the road we can do firewall rules on it. If you've seen some of my other videos, you could probably take a guess and do that now. Now you will be able to take this and scale it. The thing is with UniFi right now, there's no real quality of service right now. So when you get into a lot of phones and a lot of video and stuff like that, it may not work real well for you. It should up to until you're saturating the gigabit port on the USG, because UniFi by default is router on a stick, which means all of the VLAN routing is handled by the USG. So if you have 10 VLANs and you've got 100 ports in your network and all the VLANs are handled by the USG, all that traffic saturates this 1 gigabit line. So even if you have a USG Pro, you still only have 1 gigabit from the USG to your switch. The best hope that you've got, if you're going to do router on a stick, is to get a USG XG and then go to a 48 port with the SFP Plus port, and that will give you 10 gigabits between your USG and your switch. Now, what you can do, and what we're going to do in a later video, is you can actually segregate some of this traffic using an edge switch, which will offload that traffic from the USG and make your USG and your network more efficient, and you'll actually be able to lock it down with ACLs instead of just the simple firewall rules. But what we're going to do, we're going to plug everything in, get it powered up. I'm going to plug my PC in. We're going to discover everything. We're going to configure everything. And we are going to set the network up just like this diagram. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pause this video. I'm going to plug everything in the way that I described and power it up. And we're going to get going here. All right. So it's not pretty, but everything is plugged in. And let me explain how everything is plugged in. So up here is our switch, our 60 watt switch. The cloud key, I know everybody's cringing because that cloud key's hanging off there with that little cable, but you can see it's booting. But it's hanging off of port 8. Then port 7 goes over here to our wireless access point, and if I turn that, you can see that the light's ready for adoption there. If you look at port 6 goes to our IP camera up here, which we're not talking about that. That's just an IP camera. And then port 5 is going to my Cisco phone. Now, that Cisco phone is already adopted to a Grandstream phone system, which I have a video coming on very soon. So if I dial extension 1000 from over here, you can see that it's already powered and it's working, which is great. But we're still going to segregate it because I want it to be in a different network. Then port number 1 is our LAN uplink from here to our USG. I know there's a lot of cabling. With the small equipment like this, cabling is going to be a challenge. With rack-mounted equipment, it's a lot nicer. Now, one thing that we're going to do once we're done with this is I'm actually going to show you how to take your USG and upgrade it from a USG 3 to a USG Pro. Alright, so you can see everything's fired up. We're going to open up a web browser. We're going to open up the Ubiquity Discovery tool. We're going to find all this stuff. We're going to adopt it, get it in there. We're going to set up all the networks to our specifications and get everything online. So I'm going to go ahead and fire up that Discovery tool, and we'll be right back. Alright, so we've got our Ubiquity Device Discovery tool open, and we're going to go ahead and hit scan, and it's going to start scanning the network. But we're going to click over on the UniFi family, and this is what we're looking for because we're actually behind the USG right now. So we're interested in these devices. We'll hit Find Cloud Key, and it should find the cloud key too because the cloud key's plugged in and it's got a solid white light. So we'll hit that again. Doesn't look like the Find Cloud Key's working. So what do you do in that case? Well, in that case, we know that the DHCP pool starts at 1.6, and we've got a 1.8 and a 1.10. So what we'll do real quick is we'll just hit the web browser, and we will see if we can find the cloud key. Alright, lucky first guess, 192.168, 1.7. Not sure why the cloud key's not showing up here, but that's okay. We have a very limited number of things that it could be. We found at 1.7, so we're going to go ahead and minimize our discovery tool. And the first thing we're going to do, we got the cloud key up here. It is on version 0.10.0. We're going to go ahead and hit configure. Default username is ubnt. And what this is going to do is it should actually prompt us to change this password once we get logged in. Okay, so a little bit of a sidebar. I had to pause the video for a few minutes and do some troubleshooting. My cloud key seemed to have locked up. So if you've watched all the other videos that we've done where we've jacked around with the cloud keys and we pulled the power out of it and we've done all kinds of crazy things with the cloud key, turns out that my SD card is now bad and was causing some issues with my cloud key. So I've pulled the SD card out. I will get a new SD card to put into the cloud key so that I can have those backups on the cloud key. So anyway, here we are, and we are changing the UBNT password to something different, and that is changed. It obviously knows that there is no SD card. It does have the correct semi-correct date and time. It must still be set on Pacific time, so we will change that to Central time. And for now, we're going to leave it on DHCP. Actually, no, we are not. We're going to go ahead and change that now, and we're going to make that 192.168 1.2, and we'll leave everything else, and we'll change this secondary DNS to Google. We'll go ahead and apply the changes there. So now I'm going to lose communication with the cloud key, and I'll be able to reach it on 192.168.1.2. Now we don't really want the cloud key IP address changing. Now outside of a small office, you're also you're going to want to, outside of this environment, and maybe even in this environment, do everything with a fully qualified domain name. Now, for the overwhelming majority, I use a fully qualified domain name, even internally on small sites, but someone who doesn't have the resources to run a fully qualified domain name or doesn't want to put those resources up, if you've got a small office in your house, or even just a small office in general, and you put the UniFi gear in, and you're not going to have more than one site, and everything is on the same network in the same building, you can probably get away with using IPs, because as long as you have that configuration, if something happens, if you introduce a new controller with that configuration, it's automatically going to find the devices are automatically going to find it, and everything should be okay. Alright, so it says saving settings, please wait. So let's see what happens if we change our IP to .2. Looks like we're getting the setting. By the way, they changed the bad idea to something else and somebody posted it, but I can't remember what it is at the moment. Alright, so now we're back at our cloud key. We're going to go ahead and click Manage. And it's going to come up, since this is a blank cloud key, and is going to run the wizard. And so we are going to run through this. And we are actually going to adopt all 3 devices. So we're not going to have to do manual informs or anything like that. You can see all the devices here. We're going to select them all, and we're going to configure them. So we have selected the box next to each device. We're going to say Next. Now, our secure SSID, this is not our guest network. But we're going to go ahead and create the guest network too. So for secure SSID, we're going to call this UniFi stack. And I'm going to make the password let me in 1 exclamation point. Optionally, you may create an open wireless network for your guests, and we're going to do that. And this is going to be called UniFi stack guest. And we're going to go next. And now everything is going to start kind of chugging along here. It's pushed that. It's asking for the admin username and password. We're going to put this in here. Our says our password is so. And until you actually get a strong password, they're not going to let you click next. So let's see. Jiminy Christmas, I can't even remember what I set for the password. Okay, it likes our password. Device authentication, so this is going to be the SSH username and password for your devices. It should be a totally random password, which is good. We'll go ahead and click Next. Confirm our settings, click Finish. Now, if we had an SD card, okay, now here we can tie this to our ubnt.com account so that we can access this cloud key from anywhere. This does not open holes in your firewall. It does not allow ubiquity into your network. It uses WebRTC to communicate with your cloud key so that you can get to this from anywhere. For now, I'm going to go ahead and skip that. And what we're going to see here in just a minute is as soon as I can get logged in. Oh no, I know that's the right password. I must have just mistyped it. Okay, so enter the password, turn your cap locks off. Maybe cap locks is on, causing you some problems. We have detected that your SD card is missing. Please insert it and reboot the cloud key or disable automatic backup. So for now, I'm going to disable auto backup. If you have a cloud key, turn auto backup on. I don't have a cloud key, or not a cloud key, I have a cloud key right there. I don't have an SD card handy, so I will do a follow-up. Once I have a replacement SD card, I'll have to go out and make an Amazon order and get that taken care of. Alright, so we're going to go over to our devices, and I don't like looking at MAC addresses, so the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to give all of these names. So this will be stack switch. Now, we are on UniFi, the controller 5.7.20. We will hop over as soon as we name these, and we'll check and see if there is a new version. We're going to call this stack AP. And then this will be our stack USG. I will also do a follow-up video. I'll do a couple different follow-ups, and I'll just mash them into one video. One will be how to put a static IP address then on the USG, because right now we're using DHCP. And then we'll also go in and re-enable that auto backup on the cloud key. And anything else that you all point out that I missed will go into a follow-up. All right, so we have all our devices. Looks like we have some upgrades that need to be done, but the first thing we're going to do is go into settings, and under controller, this is where if we're going to set a fully qualified domain name instead of the IP, we would set this, then click the override inform host with controller hostname IP. It would push that change out to all of our devices. And if they can't get to that fully qualified domain name, hold on to your seat, because you could be in for a lot of disconnected devices. So we're going to drop down here to maintenance, and real quick we're going to click check for update to see if there's a newer version of the Cloud Key controller available. And it says it's checking, but nothing has come back yet at this point. So I think we are in pretty good shape there. Okay, so let's check back to our documentation. So we got the internet coming into the USG. We need these 4 different VLANs. So let's see how we are going to accomplish that. So we're going to come into settings. We're going to go into networks. Alright, so our data, we can actually edit this. We can call this data, is VLAN 1, or the untagged VLAN. So we're just going to save that. So that's our data VLAN. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a guest, and we're actually going to tag it a guest, and it's going to then on the USG apply guest firewall rules to keep anybody in this network out on even should be the wire, and we will pair that then with our wireless network. But it's going to be on LAN 1. It's going to be VLAN 2, and then our subnet will be 192.168.2.1 with a /24. We'll update our DHCP range. For now, we're going to leave all of these settings the same. I'm going to come back and do a best practices video on how to lock all of this down. We'll go ahead and click save there. Then our next network should be, we'll do video and voice. So we'll create our video network, and that's going to be corporate. That's going to be VLAN 3, 192.168.3.1/24. We'll update that, and we'll go ahead and save there. And then we're going to do voice, which should be 4. Now, in the new version of UniFi, we can actually tell the switch ports, which VLAN is the voice, and I'm assuming that that is for like an auto QoS for voice, but that is the only configurable option, unless we go down JSON hell, that we have at this point. So I'm assuming there are some things in the works. So we've got our data, our guest, video, voice. Perfect. So we're going to first go over here to our wireless networks and our UniFi stat guest. We're going to edit this, and we're going to drop this down, and we're going to give that guy VLAN number 2, because not only do we want the firewall that's on the access point applied, but we want the firewall on the wire applied as well. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And I actually don't want that open. I don't want that open, so we are going to put a password on that, and I'll click save there. So even though it's a guest network, it has the WPA password to keep anybody from just hopping onto it. Now, this guest network can do a couple different things. It can drive you to a hotspot, to a portal for payments or whatever, but under guest control, the big thing that it does right here is you have this post-authorization restriction. So once you're authorized to the wireless, there's actually a firewall on the access point that does not allow you to get to any of these RFC networks. Now, if you're running a tool like Fing, yes, you can see it, but I can actually stop you from seeing that if I disable broadcast and then I isolate the port. So there is a way to get around that, but the access point itself will actually keep you from going to these. You'll be able to, until that isolation and the disabling the broadcast is nailed down, you'll be able to use a tool like Fing. Once that's enabled, Fing is going to be worthless. So we have now, under our wireless networks, we have our guest and we have our data. Under networks, we have our guest, our video, and our voice. So now what we need to do is we need to come back out to our switch, and we need to change our ports so that devices are in the proper VLAN. So the cloud key is on port number 8. We're going to leave it alone. It's going to stay in our data network. Port number 7 is our access point. We're going to leave it alone because we have 2 SSIDs and one is tagged. Now remember, by default, a UniFi switch port is a trunk port, which means that it can see and pass all VLANs on the network. So when we connect to that SSID that is attached to VLAN number 2, that access point will go ahead and pass that traffic to the appropriate VLAN. Port number 6, what was that? Was that our port number 6 was our camera. So what we're going to do to port number 6 is we're going to click on this guy. We'll edit it. And right here under switch port profile, instead of all, where it's getting all of those, we're going to take that and we're going to make it video, and we're going to apply it. And that means that port number 5 is our voice port. So we're going to go ahead and edit this, and actually let's label it. So that'll be phone or voice. And we'll make the switch port profile voice. So the default network, default VLAN on that port is voice. We'll go ahead and apply that. I'm going to go back into 6 and we'll call this video. Apply. We'll go into number 7. I'm a huge fan of labeling things if you can. Access point. And port number 8 is going to be cloud key. Yeah, that's fine. We're not changing the profile. And then, of course, my PC is plugged into port number 4. So all of these are in the all. And VLAN 1 or the untagged VLAN is the default. So these are all going to end up on the data network. If I come over here to clients, you can see that I've still got some things that are holding on to the old IP addresses. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to our switch. I'm going to go to the ports, and I am going to go ahead and I am going to power cycle port 6 and port 5. And you hear the IR cutter on the camera click, and then you can see the buttons on the phone are starting to look a little bit like Christmas lights. So that means that everything is rebooting, and pretty soon everything should have a proper IP address. Now real quick, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade the firmware on the AP. I don't usually use the auto firmware upgrade just in case something were to go south. I don't want to have to remediate that if I'm hundreds or thousands of miles away, or even if I'm 5 miles away. I'll let the firmware come, I'll wait a couple days, make sure there are no problems, and then I will upgrade. Unless it's like an emergency for security, like gotta do it now. Our access point is going to be upgrading. If we come over here to clients, doesn't look like we've grabbed the new IP addresses yet. And you know that I get impatient, so we'll turn that refresh button back on. So I've got that, so we can click refresh. But these should be picking up new IP addresses. So this is the Cisco phone. This is the camera. So you can see the camera just grabbed 192.168.3.6. So our network setup is working. And real quick, while we're waiting for this to upgrade and for the phone to get a new IP address, if we go into settings and we go into routing and firewall, under firewall, you can see that the guest in, guest out, guest local, these firewall rules are set up and they are awesome out of the box. You're not going to get a better firewall at all, period. Go back over to our devices. The AP is upgrading. Go back over here to clients. The phone is still not showing that it's got a new IP address. Probably take a minute like it did for the camera. I could actually go over here to the phone, and the current IP on the phone, you can't see this, but it is 192.168.4.6. And to show you that's correct, I'll bring it up here in a web browser. So you can see that the phone is 192.168.4.6. It grabbed all of the proper information. UniFi is just not updated yet. Well, by the time we get back here, of course, it's updated. So you can see that this is working. Now, you can take this, like I said, you can scale this to much larger networks. Much larger networks. I have a bid out right now for a 1248 port network. So we'll see how that goes, but that's how much you can scale this. And everything works. So if I call this phone, phone's ringing. It's ringing across the network. Everything is ready to go. This is a small business out the door. So what I'm going to do is we're up and going. The next video on this particular subject will be best practices about the controller and the whole bit. So I try to keep the video shorter. This one's running about between 25 and 30 minutes. The next one I'm going to try to keep the best practices video a little shorter, but we'll come back to that. So that's it for this video. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. Please comment and share. Please follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you need best practice network consulting, UniFi, anything Ubiquiti, anything Grandstream or Synology, anything in general, Cisco networking, we do it all. Go over to h5llc.com, fill out the contact us form. You can also go over there and sign up for the newsletter so that you can stay in touch with us in case this YouTube thing goes away. If you want to make any purchases for any of the gear that you saw, I do have an Amazon link down at the bottom. It's not mandatory, and it doesn't change your price, but it kicks a couple bucks to the channel, which is always appreciated. We do have a Discord channel. The link's down there. Charlie's our admin, and he does an awesome job, so come on over and say hi. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.